Hello everyone. Before we dive into the specific technical configuration steps of this question, let's quickly summarize the entire scenario to understand the context and the requirements set by the business. In this lab, the ITM company has just completed the migration of its internal services to the Microsoft 365 platform to support a remote work model. Employees can access corporate resources from their personal computers at home, while still maintaining full access when working in the office. As Microsoft 365 administrators, our task is to implement data loss prevention (DLP) policies to minimize the risk of sensitive data leakage within the organization. The primary objective of this policy is to detect and prevent the sharing of critical personally identifiable information, specifically U.S. passport numbers and bank account numbers of employees or partners. To meet the business requirements, we need to adhere to several key principles. First, the policy must be applied across all Microsoft 365 services, including Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive, and Microsoft Teams. Second, during the initial deployment phase, the business only wants to monitor internal information exchange flows within the organization. Controlling data shared externally will be considered in the next phase. Third, when a DLP policy violation is detected, the system must trigger an alert immediately and notify both the user performing the action and the DLP support team via the email address dlpsupport@itmaster.co. Finally, the business requires that the policy be deployed in test mode before being officially applied. This helps verify that the system is working correctly, limiting false positives, and avoiding unnecessary impact on user operations. Thus, with just a few short descriptive paragraphs in the scenario, we have been able to fully determine the deployment scope, monitoring targets, notification mechanisms, and safe operating methods for the DLP policy. Now that we understand the full context and requirements from the business, we will start configuring each component in the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center to build a complete policy. Hello everyone. Today, we will analyze a practical question about configuring a data loss prevention policy, also known as DLP, on Microsoft 365 in the CompTIA Security Plus program from Security 365. To do well in this lab, we need to closely follow the business requirements provided, then convert them into the corresponding technical settings in the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center. First is the Policy Template section. We will select the U.S. Personally Identifiable Information Data Policy template. The reason is simple. The scenario requires monitoring personally identifiable information, including U.S. passport numbers and U.S. bank account numbers. This template has been pre-built by Microsoft to accurately identify those types of data. Therefore, it is the most suitable choice. Next is the policy scope. In this lab, we must select all available service locations, including Exchange email, SharePoint sites, OneDrive accounts, and Teams chat and channel messages. The prompt emphasizes that the policy must be applied to all available service locations, so no options should be left out. The next step is selecting the types of sensitive information to monitor. According to the minimum requirements of the scenario, we need to select U.S. passport number and U.S. bank account number. However, if the system allows selecting additional PA types such as Social Security number, ITIN, or driver's license, it is perfectly reasonable as they all belong to the personally identifiable information group. In a real-world environment, the monitoring scope is often expanded to increase data protection capabilities. However, in practical exams, it is best to always stick to the requirements stated in the prompt. Next is the User Notifications section. Here, we need to turn on the notification feature by selecting Enable. The goal is for users to receive an alert immediately when they perform an action that violates the DLP policy. This is an important requirement to raise security awareness and reduce the risk of data leakage. After that, we configure email notifications. Select the Notify These People option. Next, check and select the person who sent, shared, or modified the content to notify the very user who performed that action. At the same time, check Other Email and enter the address dlpsupport@itmaster.co. This way, whenever a violation is detected, both the user and the DLP support team will receive a notification for timely handling. Now we move to the section, Detect when content is shared from Microsoft 365. Here, select Only with people inside my organization. The reason is that the business wants to implement monitoring for internal communications before expanding to external parties. This is also a very common implementation approach in practice, helping to reduce risks and unnecessary alerts during the initial phase. Finally, there is the policy deployment status. We select, I'd like to test it out first. This is a test mode that allows the organization to evaluate the policy's effectiveness before officially applying it to all users. In real-world security projects, running tests is always a crucial step to detect false positives, fine-tune detection thresholds, and minimize impact on business operations. In summary, this PBQ not only tests the ability to use the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center but also assesses the mindset of converting business requirements into specific security policies. If you carefully read key keywords such as all locations, internal communication, and test first, you can completely determine the exact configuration and achieve the maximum score. Thank you for following this tutorial. See you again in the next practice questions for CompTIA Security Plus. To refer to more labs, tutorial videos, study materials, and in-depth content on CompTIA Security Plus, please visit Security 365 Cyber Academy at academy.security365.io. Security 365 is proud to be a CompTIA training partner in Vietnam, always providing students with quality learning and practice solutions at a reasonable cost.